Okay, we're live, remember.
Yes, welcome everyone again to our weekly webinar titled Stopping the Violence in America. As you have always reiterated, and I like to share it again and again, and that is that it began with Mother Moon, who is the founder of UPF, which is a sponsor of this webinar. Has a very deep concern about gun violence in America and how can we reduce gun violence. And as we started this particular program and webinar, we realized that the gun is an inanimate object. Someone has to pick that gun up and shoot another person, harm another person, kill another person, whatever they do with that particular weapon that has caused harm to an individual has to have some sort of root causes of why they have picked up that particular weapon to harm another person. And during this webinar, we have discovered that there are several root causes. There are root causes that causes that triggers people in ways that we maybe have not taken in full consideration, or we should look even more closely to. So we're very happy that we've had several speakers who have helped us to come to that particular insight in root causes by the avenues they have taken in prevention, post types of crimes, what happens afterwards, traumas, there's certain things, mental health issues, everything that there is that is plausible to help reduce violence. We've had speakers to address it. So we're very, very, very happy that this webinar has come to a point where we have had these types of insights. So, of course, I've always shared with everyone and to the greater audience that we've had religious leaders, political leaders, law enforcement officers and chiefs and activists and all several other categories of people, mental health professionals to come and share with us how in their respective areas they've helped in incredible ways to reduce crime and violence within their communities. Today we have someone we've had on before, and this is a rerun, but it's always awesome to see what a person can come from, and then rise to the occasion. So it speaks to the power of goodness and the power of goodness that is still within each individual, no matter who they are. They're criminals. And this person is extraordinary because he had went from the prison in a particular city, then became the mayor of that city. What an awesome turnaround. And his name is Honorable Jermaine Wilson. He's still the mayor of Leavenworth, Kansas. Jermaine Wilson's life story is about hope and redemption. 4 years spent in incarceration, 4 years in juvenile correction, 3 years in prison. And during incarceration, he became a Christian and discovered his purpose. After being released from prison, he started serving his community, created a nonprofit organization called Unity and a community movement, working with local law enforcement to build trust between citizens and law enforcement. His criminal record was expunged in 2013, and he became the mayor of Leavenworth, Kansas in 2019. And he's traveled throughout the world sharing his testimony of hope and redemption. So we're really happy to have him. I think he's written an autobiography as well. So without any further ado, let's welcome our dear brother, Jermaine Wilson, the Honorable Jermaine Wilson. Thank you. My brother, Jermaine Wilson, Mayor, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your excellent story, the story of hope and the story of vision, the story of redemption, and a story of how a new start can put a person like you in a position to help others and become a leader in your community. We're so grateful to have you today, and the floor is yours. Let's welcome our dear brother, Mayor Jermaine Wilson.
First, giving honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, I am very thankful for this opportunity that you have blessed me with. You read my bio. I think it's time for Q&A time now. No, I'm joking. So blessed with this opportunity. One thing I just want to start off, and you all may be familiar with this, but as we go through life, sometimes we're dealt hands that we have no control over, but what we are able to control is how we respond to situations. And so I just thank God just for the journey he allowed me to grow through, because it shaped me, prepared me to be where I'm at today, and it helped me to identify and find my identity through Christ, because I know that I am more than a conqueror through him who strengthens me. And so my journey began back February 27, 1987, in a small town called Kennett, Missouri. If you all know, it's the hometown of Sheryl Crow. Very small town. My mother, she was 15 years old when she had her very first child. And by the age of 20, she had her fourth child, which was when I was born. My father, he was in and out of prison. And my mom did not want us to be exposed to the crime that was taking place inside of our neighborhoods. And she wanted to move us away from our neighborhood so we could get a new start and a better opportunity. I had an uncle who served in Leavenworth, Kansas. He was in the military, and he had informed her about the community. It was a new start, new location, 8 hours away. And so she packed up all of her belongings and everything that she had and moved us to Leavenworth, Kansas. My mother didn't have a lot of money, so we had to settle for affordable housing in the apartment complex, which is known as the ghetto. And so when my mom moved us down, she didn't realize the environment, but it was exactly a new start, new location. My mother worked 2 jobs to make ends meet, did everything that she could to make sure that she provided an opportunity that was going to lead us down a better path. When my mother would leave the house, my brother and I, we would run around the neighborhoods. We were exposed to the crime. We were exposed to the violence, the drugs. We had became a product of our environment. And so what seemed abnormal to some people was normal to us, because it's what we seen every single day. My dad moved back into the picture, but he brought us addiction along with him. And so as he brought us addiction along with him, it created more problems for us. Every single year we had to move. We could not renew the lease. And so I end up having to relocate to different schools. And you all may have experienced this. Anytime that you relocate somewhere, you have to start over from scratch. But growing up, I had dealt with a lot of insecurities, a lot of struggles. And so I had to start over from scratch and do what I could to fit in, to try to make new friends. Well, because I had this identity crisis and I was suffering from insecurities, I began to compromise. I began to do things that got me attention and acceptance from people. So I started doing drugs just so I could start hanging out with the older group. At the age of 11 years old was the first time that I started using drugs. I tried marijuana. At the age of 12, I ended up breaking inside of a house, committed a burglary charge, and was arrested. You figured I would have learned from the experience, but I continued that criminal lifestyle simply because of the accolades, the praises I received amongst my peers. For some reason, the neighborhood I grew up in thought it was cool to commit crimes. And so I allowed the accolades and praise to get to my head, and I stayed on that criminal path, that journey. Well, my mother and dad and them started going to church. Their addiction was no longer there. God had broke them free from the addictions, but by this time the change had taken place in their lives. Me and my brother we wasn't ready for church. And so I ended up running away. I ended up getting kicked out of school, was getting in fights. And at the age of 15, I committed a robbery charge and was sentenced to 2 years in juvenile corrections. While I was incarcerated, I tried to escape, failed in the attempt, and was sentenced to an additional 2 more years. Now I'm 15 years old. I threw away my entire high school years. I'm still dealing with insecurities, searching for acceptance. And the only acceptance that I felt that I had received was from a gang. And I ended up joining the gang. And for majority of the time during my incarceration in my juvenile years, I was in and out of segregation because I was trying to prove myself to this gang. Well, for the sake of time, to fast forward, I ended up maxing out my time, didn't receive any good time. And when I got released, I went back to my neighborhood because I didn't understand who I was. I didn't understand my purpose in life. And I was willing to settle because I felt as if society wouldn't give me a second chance because I had a criminal record. Because I believed the lies of the enemy, I began to settle, and I ended up settling for a sack of crack cocaine. Everybody else was doing it, and I thought this is the fast way to make money. And I realized in the midst of me trying to be like everybody else, I lost myself. So now I'm in this journey. I'm selling drugs. I become addicted to the drugs that I'm selling. And God was trying to get my attention during this process. He blessed me with a child. One thing that I always yearned for and wanted was a beautiful child. And God blessed me with that because I was so involved in the streets, in love with money. I ended up neglecting my responsibilities and leaving my family and choosing the streets. I was only out 18 months from serving 4 years. And it seems like I was trying to make up for lost time, and I lost more time in the midst of me trying to make up for lost time. And before I realized, I had caught a drug charge and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. Now I'm in prison. I got a son who's 8 months old, who didn't ask to be brought into this world, but because of his father's choices, bad choices that led to my incarceration, my son was without a father. My son's mother was left all alone. And so now I'm in prison. I'm sitting inside of my cell. I begin to reflect over my life. I'm sobering up, and I'm asking God, like, God, how did I get here? Like, what's next? What do you have for my life? And I knew God was real. I just didn't have that relationship with him. And so I began to reflect, and I see that my dad had been to prison. My brother had been to prison. My sister was in prison. Now I'm sitting in prison. If I don't change my life, my son's going to end up going to prison as well. And I end up joining this Christian program that I had heard about, Prison Fellowship Ministries, and I ended up signing up for the program. I got blessed with the opportunity to be part of the program. And when I walked inside of this program, even though I'm incarcerated, the community that these brothers had provided me was a safe place for me to grow, mature, and become who God wanted me to be. And so I'm going through this program, learning how to be a leader, finding my identity in Christ, but I still needed that personal touch from God. And it was about 8 months into my sentence when my letter stopped coming, phone calls stopped being accepted, money stopped being put on my books. It was the first time in my life I had felt alone. And while I was in my cell, I just broke down crying one day. I said, God, I need you. Lord, if you are real, please come to my heart. Speak to me. Change my mindset, because I'm tired of being a failure. I'm tired of being a mistake. I know there's much more to my life than just being incarcerated. And God had came up on me on that moment while I was in my prison cell. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. I felt accepted. Peace came up on me. It was like listening to your favorite song, and it just takes you to a place that you're not even where you're at right now, but it takes you a place of comfort, of just peace. Well, even though that I was incarcerated physically, mentally, I was free. Spiritually, I was free. And I knew God had touched my life at that moment. And so even though society had written me off, I got up off that ground. I thank Jesus for touching my life and forgiving me and giving me a new start. I didn't write society back. I wrote a letter to myself and said, I'm going to succeed. I am not a failure. I am not a mistake. I am a success. I am not a statistic. I will be a leader in my community. I will start a nonprofit organization, and I will be there to be a great father for my son. And I prayed over my goals that I had written out to myself, and I gave it to God. I began to study the word, and the more I began to study, the more I seen how God was using individuals in the Bibles that had made a mistake. And God had showed me this might have been a place of frustration, for some people, but this was a purposeful destination for myself. I lost my freedom, but I discovered my purpose. And so now I'm thanking God for this journey that he has given me, and I'm growing and I'm maturing as I'm going through this prison system. God ends up touching my son's mother's heart. She ends up becoming a believer in Christ. She comes back into the picture. And so now we're able to, we're equally yoked. And now we're able to plan our future together because we know that Christ is the center of our relationship. Ended up creating a bond with my son, communicating with him. And so as I'm growing, learning, and maturing, I'm making sure everything that I'm learning, I am applying to my life. Once I ended up receiving my good time, the prison doors opened up for me. Everything that I had learned, I applied. I found a church home, started serving inside of my church. I began to share my testimony. That facility that I tried to escape from, I ended up becoming a mentor at that same facility. I successfully completed my parole. Once I completed my parole, I started volunteering with the program that ended up giving me a second chance and an opportunity. And so I'm serving my community, giving back. I got released from prison December the 9th, 2010. God blessed me with the opportunity to have a job up on Fort Leavenworth government installation. And it was the year 2015. God had reminded me, son, I'm going to give you a new start. Any man that is in Christ is a new creature. Behold, all things pass away. Behold, all things become anew. Well, it was at a time that on the government installation, they had just recently enhanced their security clearance. And those that had criminal records could no longer work on Fort Leavenworth. Well, God allowed me to be able to get my criminal record expunged. When that notification went out, that year I was eligible. And I was blessed with my income taxes, my refund, because I had a job. And I used those resources to invest in my future. I ended up applying to get my criminal record expunged. I didn't have to step 1 foot off into the courtroom because God had already went before me. And once I submitted my application, it was a 3-week process, and I got received notification in the mail that my criminal record was expunged. And so God blessed me to be able to retain my job. And that year was also the year we ended up establishing our nonprofit organization called Unity in the Community. God had spoke to me that he was going to use me to unite this community. There was a national divide, with law enforcement, with the Black community, brown community. And God said, I'm going to use you to create change, not just nationally, but also locally within your own community. So I reached out to the chief of police and I asked him, I said, would you be willing to sit down, have a conversation with me? Can we discuss partnership? He accepted the invitation and we agreed that we were going to move forward with doing community events together. Our first community event was called Bridging the Gap, Unity in the Community. It was the youth versus the police department in basketball. That day, once we had the event, it was very successful, very well attended. We had Blacks, we had whites, we had browns, we had everybody serving and working together. We gave away food, we gave away clothes, but it was a very, very, very exciting time because people seen people serving and working together. It wasn't about color, it wasn't about law enforcement, it was about us becoming united as one community to serve and meet the needs together. At that time, that's when people started to inquire and ask the question, who put this event on? They said, man, that's that little short dude over there. They said, man, ain't that Too Short from back in the day? That's my childhood nickname. And they said, yeah, but he's serving God and he's serving his community. And they said, man, that's the individual that we need to be able to lead our community. People started asking, you ever thought about getting involved in politics? I'm like, nah, man, that's the devil's playground. I don't do politics. They said, but you got the number one thing down. You know how to serve people. And you know how sometimes church folks, we can get real religious. When God is knocking on the door and speaking to you and saying, hey, I want to lead you this way, we'll respond back, let me pray about it. Well, I was praying about it for 2 whole years. But the opportunity kept coming back to me. In 2017, that's when I answered the call. I accepted it and I began to walk along God in this journey, my political journey. And I said, God, I'm going to trust you. I don't know how you're going to do it. Don't know how you're going to lead me, but I'm going to need you to make this happen. Then God opened that door that no man can close. And he says in his word, you know, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. I was an individual that was ostracized. I was a ex-felon, ex-convict. And God said he's going to take the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And so God used me to not only receive the most votes and become the Leavenworth City Commissioner, but allow me the opportunity to become the mayor of Leavenworth, Kansas in 2019. And so I just want to say, because I kept my faith in Jesus, I didn't allow the small distractions to stop me from going forward. And I continued to acknowledge God and all the things that he had done for me and the doors that he had opened up to me. And he said, if you exalt my name, I'll draw all men unto you, because I kept him at the center of my life. That's why I'm in this position where I'm at today. And so it has been an honor and a privilege to serve my community. The second day I was in office, I worked with the prosecutor and we provided free expungements to those that are in our community, because there are so many people who need a second chance, deserve a second chance, have earned a second chance, but don't have the resources to get their second chance. And so we have just recently got it approved to establish Big Brothers and Big Sisters inside of our program, Leavenworth. There was a huge void. There wasn't any youth programming that was inside of our community. And so I'm blessed and privileged to be able to bring Big Brothers and Big Sisters here in our community, continue to work with the law enforcement as we're doing community outreach events together, trust talks, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep this community united as a whole. And God also allowed me the opportunity to be able to go back into the prison ministry and serve in prison ministry full time. The same organization God used to lead me to Christ is now the same organization I'm the regional director of. And so God allowed things to come back in my life in full circle. And so it's an honor and a privilege to be able to share with you all my journey. And at this time, I'll open the door for any questions.
Wow, that was a mouthful. We can cut there. And we're really grateful to what you just shared with us. It's a story of hope, but it's also a story to share that there's so many. I always say, you know, I don't think I was on camera when I said, but I can say again, what good comes out of Nazareth, you know. And the point is that a lot good comes out of Nazareth. As you had said, the lack of certain environmental help led you in certain directions, but sometimes God had to come in,
amen,
and become that parent, if you will, that social worker to you personally, because he knew that you would be the catalyst to be the social worker, the outreacher for those who he needs to outreach to, that can do the same as you could if they had that particular platform and that particular foundation. And so I'm really grateful. God has an ultimate plan. And as we stand as individuals, we don't stand as individuals. We represent something larger than ourselves. So I can see that God God opened the prison door like Peter, and you just walk past the God, your expungement was where you walk past the God, because Peter had a mission to accomplish, and you have a mission accomplished. So I want to thank you so much for sharing those beautiful words. I want to open up the floor for anyone who has any, let me see. Wow. That was profound. It's amazing how we can re-listen to stuff, and these incredible individuals that are the best practice. And I think that's what God wants us to do, to be the catalyst to bring them to the forefront national platforms. I mean, we have plenty, we have many, talked to some people and they're advocating that these big national organizations are going on stopping the violence in our community, and they have all these great agendas. I agree that they are. However, can we bring them together, not to display only their particular organization, but they can bring a sense of unity of their collective organizations that I think that we don't really have. I'm not sure, but I don't see anything out there that is advocating that on a national scale so that we can nationally bring some resolve. And when I listen to the Honorable Jermaine, it's like, again, it's just such an eye-opening, and it speaks volumes. It really speaks volumes, about these people. I think we had I felt for me, we had an excellent second meeting, organizing meeting for the upcoming conference, which would be December 14th, I believe. And the first we had, of course, our UPF directors and Family Fed directors. But the second one, we had like 4 of our speakers come on. And I think we have a couple more because they're asking to come on. But it was just innovative, and an innovative meeting. It was a meeting of hope and a meeting of a paradigm shift. And so I want to open up the floor, but I will say that I think what distinguishes us and Mother Moon bringing us to this table is that we have what we call a headwing understanding and thought processing that can bring things to a new level, a new platform of change and sincerity. So I'm really grateful John was there, Nadia. We had Pam Johnson came, if you remember her. She came on twice. She's really extraordinary. We had Reverend Burke. We have Dr. Bostic. You remember, he was incredible. We had our brother, Dr. Darren Faulkner. He was there. Who else was there outside of our membership?
Dr. Madeline.
Madeline, of course. I mean, that's member. He's part of the fabric, right? But Dr. Madeline was there. We had Barry Geller there. We're so grateful for him and really bringing Pam to the table. We had Uli, NASA's wife, and Nadia, John. I think I got everybody. But anyway, we're going to have another one on the 7th, and I think we can crystallize what we're doing and how we're going to conduct the conference. I did get some information back from Dr. Faulkner, some suggestions. He had some really nice suggestions because he made some very excellent remarks that also just brought enlightenment, if you will, to the organizing committee conference that we did have, Zoom meeting that we did have. So I just want to open up the floor to this brother, our brother, Honorable Mayor Jermaine, who really, his story is extraordinary. And one of the other pieces that he shared that I thought made a difference, and that is he mentioned each one of these guys, and they've and women who have come on, many of them give testimony to how God works in their lives. Just the other day, I did have a long conversation, if you remember, with the ex-NFL ball player, Frank Murphy. Yeah, he and I had like a 2-hour conversation 2 days ago, and it was just amazing, and his story is similar to, Jermaine Wilson's story. But one of the things that they all come to conclusion with, it was God who stepped in their lives. So as we know what that is, God was able to, their conditions were made where God can able to deal and to resurface their original mind so it can be the power structure to help them change addictive behaviors, correct? And so one of the conclusions that we've
Whoops, he'll be back. Froze for a minute. There he is.
okay, did I freeze? I didn't know.
Yep, you're
I
back
heard you say
now.
what. Okay, so just to, the conclusion was that what would distinguish us from any other conference that are out there stopping violence, that we are religious leaders, religious perspectives leading the charge. And when we listen to these extraordinary stories, they're always going back to how God has played the really critical role in their sustainable and measurable change. The floor is open. Anyone like to share?
Well, I would say, Reverend Oliver, the second time around is really also amazing when you hear something a second time. Like a movie, sometimes you pick out lots of little things that you missed before. So I had about 10 questions I wish he was here live. I'd like to ask him, about his experience in prison and how all that thing happened. It's just incredible, So anyway, yeah, I think that Reverend Faulkner had a really great idea. It was maybe him mentioned or one of them about having some like gang members or leaders in gangs and people down at the little bit it's called lower level. If they could be part of our program somehow, get them involved like Dr. Bostic did, go meet them in person. But I don't know. I just think we've got to see how to be unique, how to be special, how to be inclusive. And I think that's going to be the power that we have in our program, and hopefully that'll work. So, kind of concerned about that. We, like I say, want to be just uniquely different and a notch above. And again, I think the same way we have God, and we need to pray and think, reflect about these things and how to make them work together and how to make it really more than just our academic program. So anyway, I thought let's work hard on that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, John. I actually, while he was speaking, of course, we can invite some gang members, but the guy was saying, I have one for you, and he's a mayor. I have one already for you.
You got it.
Yeah, there you have it. Okay. All right. Thank you, John, for your input. Wayne, looks like your hand.
From listening to Jermaine's testimony, it struck me that he found God and the love of Jesus Christ in prison and not in any church. Mm-hmm. And that's a little bit bewildering. And the story that he had at 11 years old, getting involved in crime, and crime is cool. It is more than just a local problem. It is a national sin that we have allowed our country to come to this point. And I think what I would like to ask him if he were here is, what are your thoughts on how can churches, what are churches not doing? What is it that they need to do better? Where do they need to go to deal with this problem before it reaches the point that he experienced, having to go to prison to find God? So that would be my comment to him, my question to him.
Yeah, I think what he said that it gave her opportunity to sober up. Use that word. But when you're sobering up, you have to come out of that environment that will be tempting, and then God can speak to you even better than the church, because the church, always say there's two things, Wayne, that when I was pastor, I was always tell my congregation this: you can make a commitment, and people can go to church and make a commitment to change, right? But a commitment you can prolong, or you can change it, or it won't be in the timely manner that it should be, because he just made a commitment. But when you're incarcerated like that, I think he is able to make a covenant. When you make a covenant, you go into very deep crevices of your heart and your mind and your soul. And then that is what really convicts you, no matter what comes your way. So I think a lot of people have gone, even in the Nation of Islam, many of those guys have all those conversions in the prison system. It's very interesting. But it's a good question. I wish he was here to answer it for himself, Wayne. Thanks. All right, Reverend Franklin.
Yeah, thank you so much, Reverend Oliver, and thank you everybody for your comments, because yeah, it's a lot of things to say. I mean, really, I think if we wanted, I think we can take this discussion for another hour, or maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. Because I thought that one question by Wayne was so interesting. I mean, questioning that he found God outside the church. And that's something, I really want to think about, because I had heard that before when Reverend Duntley was having a podcast with the former, I guess you can say he was like the vice chairman of the let's see, Church of Refuge Church in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
right? I forgot his name, right? And and he made the same comment, addressing Wayne's point, right? That he found God not in the church, but he found God when he was, I guess, in a very, very dark place. And so I'm just wondering about that, because it's so important, um, that we do our absolute best to put God in everything. And that's where his victory, that's where God led him to victory. And we really need God. We really need God. And all that is to say how blessed we are to live in America. Because I'm just thinking, a person like that, if they were living in maybe some other country, would probably have less of a chance to be a mayor or a person of influence in some other country. But he was able to have the freedom to be able to come to a place where he actually was put in the position where he had no external options at all. And it put him to a place of being genuine and being authentic about the reality of the situation. He had nowhere to go but God. And bam, as soon as he asked that question, bam, God was right there. God was just waiting for that moment. And I think it's so interesting, because I like to believe that everybody on this call has had some kind of experience like that. When you come to a place of genuine authenticity, of some deep sincerity, God is right there. He's just waiting for you to come to that point. And it's incredible. That is an example of the American dream, to be able to come to that point and to find out who you are. Every and what we're trying to do in Elizabeth is that I'm very concerned about our second generation. And so what we are trying to do, my pastor asked me to serve as a director of music ministry, or the Hyojeon culture of Elizabeth. And that's the whole idea, is because as some of you already know how passionate I am about music. I believe it could be music, it can be any type of media. I think that it's so important for us as a second generation, as we go in our senior years or older, brothers and sisters, to create that environment where it's going to be free, it's going to allow our second generation to have the freedom to be themselves and not be afraid to make mistakes. And I can say more, but I just wanted to say that. But thank you so much for allowing me that opportunity to respond.
Sure. Thank you. Really appreciate
Can I
those words.
respond to that, Reverend Oliver?
Sure.
I think what Wayne said, if I understand, I think it's true not only Christian churches, but unification churches are somehow missing the boat on really catching young people. We've seen that, and I think that's something to reflect on and try to find. We're working on it, I think, very diligently, and we're getting there. But also, I know the fact is that Reverend Wilson said, his parents both gave up their drinking and drugs and got saved, and he said he wasn't ready. So that's the point I think we have. Sometimes people aren't ready, but give God the credit. God catch you wherever he can catch you when you're ready, right? You're ready when you're 10 years old or, fifth grade or senior high school, whatever, or you're running down the street and fall down and get hurt, or anything can happen to kind of open your brain up and mind. Sometimes people have to go to the very bottom, and when they're ready, and God catches you, so I mean, it works both ways. God is always going to be there when he can be, when someone makes themselves available, for that kind of turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. That is so true. Dr. Madeline.
Hey, grace and peace, everyone. I'm not on the camera. I'm not camera ready.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But this was the first time that I heard this message, and it was very profound. And it reminded me that when we talk about kids being a product of their environment, and he decided at some point he had to come to the place where he wanted to change. Sometimes it's in a church setting, but God is everywhere. As you all know, I worked in the prison system, so I've seen lives change. I've seen the 230-pound, 6'2" man fall on his face. I've seen the brokenness in men and in women, but it's at that point where God can enter in, because we have to yield ourselves to him, because he's everywhere. And like I think it was John that said, when we're ready. But for him to be able to just come full circle, he had a made up mind. And when I hear a person that has a made up mind, it always takes me back to Father Moon, because Father had a made up mind that he was going to walk and emulate Christ. And he did that. He did that very well, being able to bring people up under the power and authority and understanding of who God was, because he led his life as an example. So when God intervenes in our lives, when we open up and allow him to intervene in our lives, we know that anything is possible, but we have to be in that place to have the made up mind. I listened to Franklin. He was talking about the second gen. I think with the second gen, it's a matter of the first gen trusting them, because in Indianapolis, they're doing an amazing job. When they organized the Blue Dragon Tour, I smiled from temple to temple, because they stepped up to the plate and they took full responsibility, and Reverend Dunkley was just blown away. So just in due season, it's a process of just releasing the reins and trusting them and understanding that they're not going to do it like the first generation did it. You know what I mean? They have a different level of understanding. They have a different way of executing, but to be able to trust what the first gen has instilled in them, and know that they're going to get the best possible outcome, because their heart desire is to be pleasing to True Mother. So today was a day of enlightenment. I love to hear those stories that come full circle, because we start out a certain way. That doesn't mean we have to finish a certain way. So as we continue to lend ourselves to the community, as we continue to lend our stuff to others, and as Reverend Oliver continued to do an amazing job with his collaborating with everyone else, and continually, bringing people on the the webinar to speak and to give their story and to lend themselves as we continue to come together collectively in laying this foundation of the National Stopping the Violence Task Force, to know that each step is a step of someone's testimony, and we're laying a foundation that the next generation can build off of and come out with a tool that can be used nationally. So thank you everyone for your input, and thank you for allowing me to share.
Yeah,
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah, very awesome. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, the floor is open.
Maybe Arcadia.
Nadi? Yeah, oh yeah, Arcadia. Okay. Arcadio.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very
Okay,
clearly.
so I this week I don't have video.
Oh,
But I do want to say that I was truly inspired by Jermaine's testimony, and you know, I saw a lot of similarities between him and myself. You know, and also the comment about finding God in prison. He's everywhere, but with me, it also that's where I found God. That's where the pride and ego that had always held me back. I humbled myself before Him, and things started happening. So I was truly, truly inspired by everything he had to say. And for me, what comes to mind is that we're all individuals, we work with organizations, but I would really like to see us to come together collectively and put together what is working for us, share it, take it to other places. That to me would be, you know, the next step for all of this, because the speakers that you've had all have great things to say. All have great ideas about how to address the issue of violence and gangs and all that. So that for me is what I'm looking for as the next step. So thank you.
yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, Arcadio, we definitely have to have you at the conference, and look forward to you coming as well. Anyone else like to say a few words as we come? As we are waiting for someone, thank you, Arcadio. What you just said is so true. And I think when you were sharing, one thing that popped in my mind that Jermaine Wilson had shared with us was, he kept saying his transformation and his rise was predicated on him serving others. That was like his platform, you know, and that goes to, you know, our cliche, or, you know, our rallying call, which says living for the sake of others, you know, is the key to making the transformative changes in our lives. And because it reflects God, right? That's who God is, living for others. And He is the excellent and the primo standard setter for that. And Jesus Christ came and did the same. You know, He was the first. That's why his victory was that no matter what his enemy did for his other, he pleaded the case before God. He was living for them, not for his own pain and their own suffering, but living for others. And that's where his rise came. I want to thank him for that. Anybody else has anything they want to share?
I'll comment on what you just said, Reverend Oliver. Think about it. You know, his experience was he came out serving. He knew that he was born again Christian, but he didn't take that and beat people over the head and say, you got to come and get saved. He went out and served. So interesting, because he went to the community and served out of prison, ended up being a politician, or a mayor, not a politician perhaps, but a good mayor, you know, and it's a model of quite an interesting behavior, you know. I mean, I say political, secular, and spiritual all together. He just puts it all together where he attracts, you know, people to him, support him, and do good things in his community. So it's a very powerful model that he has. Actually, I really think it's a great example.
Sure, you're right. Thank you. It's true. Anybody else who wants to piggyback off that? Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, all that is true. I mean, what everybody is saying is that it that's why I really like this platform, and I like these things that are production of UPF, because one of the things in which we need to do, I believe, that will craft the path of our healing as well as our survival, is to be able to learn how to be able to genuinely communicate. Because I learn every single time, I learn something. I get some gem every time we have this opportunity to talk. When we hear of a person who is out there doing the work, I'm reminded of what I need to do, as as a follower of true parents, a follower of Jesus, that what I need to do and refine my work that I offering towards the betterment of community, for the betterment of the community. And so I'm thinking also too, Reverend Oliver, because you talked about head wing ideology, and so I believe, from what I understand, that is the platform for us to transcend political parties, because it is so important that we have that head wing thought. In order for that, we can transcend cultural beliefs, in order that we can transcend the liberal perspective as opposed to conservative perspective, and so that we can find the strength to go beyond the partisanship that seems to choke us from really getting to the path that is actually the healing solution. And so I see that that it is so important for us to continue the path to remain spiritual and not allow religion to put us in a box where we become so committed towards staying within the box that, to Dr. Madeline's point, that we do not lose our I guess you can say that we do not fall into the temptation of doing it our own way, but to be open to understand that, yes, we can lay the foundation, but then give others a room and chance to be able to exercise their God-given creativity as well. And as long as that is centered upon God and the principle within, I think we will create the environment where we will see the unfolding of many, many new ideas to come, new inventions to come, new music to come. A whole culture can blossom. And that's a beautiful thing about God, being the source of the intervention, because God is authentic, God is real, God is, the source of our limited capacity. God opens the door for unlimited possibilities, unlimited creativity. And here in our environment, we have to really protect this nation from going out of alignment with God's will and God's word. And I think that we'll be able to survive and thrive, and to be the moral example that could serve the world. So those are things that come up as I hear some of your inspirations.
Wow, thank you very much for that.
Yes, and can I just speak to that for a second, Reverend Oliver?
Sure.
We talk about the church. I look at the church as the church building. The church is the hospital. We've all been through we have all been to the hospital. We've all been through the hospital. And sure, as long as we're in this physical body, in this physical realm, we continuously have work to do to be better. But at some point, we are to become the church individually and collectively. So it's our responsibility to set those examples. And as you're saying, Reverend Franklin, to allow God to be outside of the box, meet people where they are and walk alongside of them, because the road, once we get to the place where we have understanding of other people's culture, of other people's religion, of other people's mindsets and thoughts, we can walk parallel and work together. It does no good if Reverend Oliver and I both have pancakes, but neither one of us have syrup. Somebody has the syrup. Somebody has the peanut butter. Somebody else has the jelly. Somebody has the Kool-Aid. Somebody has the sugar. So as we work together to bring to the table and respect what each individual bring to the table, we have so many churches among us once we come outside those walls to be able to successfully do the work that God has assigned us to do, because we'll be in alignment. And everyone will be bringing their I like to use the analogy of food because food is love, but everyone will be bringing their dish to the table.
Amen.
Amen.
So, Reverend Oliver, I have to say, God will chastise me if I don't share this, but when Dr. Franklin was speaking, he talked about being in a box, right? Maybe we're in a box, but you gave this vision. Reverend Wilson was in prison. He was in his box. I'm in my own box, but it's a prison I'm in. And if I think of it that way, then I have to really fight to get out, right? I want to get outside the walls of prison, allow other things to happen, spiritual development to take place, and all the ideas you have can happen, but we have to get out of our own prison and get freed from the shackles of our own mind, So I thought I'd share it with you. Thank you so much.
That's right, because some people has never been physically detained. However, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, they're incarcerated.
That's right.
True.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm muting.
That's okay.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. Well, everyone, thank you. It was just an incredible and innovative conversation and feedback, even though this is a recording. And of course, when he was here live, we had other interactions with him, but I think this was also very critical and very innovative conversation. And I just want to say that let's look forward to the next meeting and the upcoming conference, because I think we will be able to bring a new paradigm of structuring a nonviolent outreach. We're not saying that we know everything, but we are saying that we feel a very concerted concern to bring everybody together. And I think Arcadio said it like never before, not just presenting, but also to collaborate and to fuse hearts and minds together, and let God be the glue, if you will, in the midst that we will have entered the upper room and start speaking great languages of goodness together. And that's a mighty force that America needs. Reverend Franklin has indicated that America is in danger. America is almost losing its footing. But I always say this one thing, and I said it to someone else, and we were in conversation about America. Abram at that time, he was in Sodom and Gomorrah, and God asked me to find 10 or 100. And then I will stop it. And the person says, well, yeah, but still, stuff happens. And I said to them, no, you have to ask why God asked that question. Because you can find one. There's a reason why. Because he knew if that condition was made, then he can step in, as we were sharing. He can step in and make the impossible change that was going on in Sodom and Gomorrah. It seemed impossible. But God said, I can change that, but I need the conditions from you. Can you find one? Can you find 10? And I proclaim that when we speak, as we are speaking today, there are 10. The 10 has to come together and collaborate and become a formidable force to make the sustainable and substantive change that we can make when God is on our side. I want to thank everyone again for coming on again, and we'll see you next week. And pray for the conference in Las Vegas, so we can have a successful conference and bringing people together. And it's not going to be a conference where people say, why aren't you inviting everyone? No, I'm not inviting just everyone. I'm just inviting the leaders, these incredible people, to come together and join forces. And then the next one, we can invite a larger crowd of people, because then we can have a structure ready for the masses. And that's how I see it. And I pray God would help us bring it to fruition. God bless you, everyone. Thank you all.
Before we go, Reverend Oliver, I think Arcadia had a question about an email in reference to the conference.
Oh, okay.
In the chat.
No, I didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah.
He asked, I think he's asking if you were going to send an email out in reference to the conference.
We will. After this next meeting we're having next Monday. And then we're going to solidify a few things and start sending the emails out to the general and to everyone for their participation. Did that answer your question, Arcadio?
It does, but that wasn't me that asked it. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well,
It's okay,
somebody
but
asked
I did want that information.
Oh, Andrea.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we will.
Also, if you can send me a copy of the recording from last Monday night, I'll make a notes for it and send it to you.
Sure.
Just send me the audio or video, whatever, doesn't matter, just as long as I can hear.
I have audio. I have
good.
everything. I have the video. I've sent already to Barry. Barry, did you get it? Get your copy?
Let me just take a look here. I didn't notice it yet, but
yeah, I sent it yesterday.
Did you send it to Joymaker?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, good. Okay,
Thank you very much. I can send it to John if you like, Reverend Oliver.
Thank you, Barry.
That would be great. Yeah,
okay, I'll do that right now.
It was a great meeting. All right, everyone. God bless.
So was today, by the way. Thank you very much for this.
God bless. Have a blissful week.
Thank you. You
Thank
too.
you.
All right, take
Bye,
care.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Always an excellent discussion. Really appreciate the content, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, God bless.
Bye.
I guess Claudine is ready to go.